Welcome again to another edition of DX Engineering Videos. Today here at DX Engineering headquarters in Tallmadge, Ohio, we're very pleased to have Joe Shupienis, W3BC. Welcome, Joe.
I'm glad to be here, Tim.
Joe, you've been very active in Western Pennsylvania doing various things, but probably most people don't know how you got started in this hobby. How did it all happen for W3BC?
Well, actually, it all happened for what started out as, of all things, WPE3GVZ, which was the popular electronic shortwave listener program. And I got started in broadcast listening. The reason I did that, from the time I was 8 or 9 years old, I knew I wanted to be a ham, but I couldn't find anybody in my local town, which was a relatively small community, who could teach me the Morse code, which was a requirement for getting a ham license then. But I enjoyed the aspects of the hobby that I could find. When I hit 8th grade, I was 13 years old, and my homeroom teacher slash art teacher was Jim Albert, K3TFL. And I mentioned to him that I wanted to be a ham, and he said, well, there's a class starting. And so I was part of the class, and the rest is history.
Now, how much impact did amateur radio have on your choice of what you studied in college and things like and jobs?
Yeah. I'll tell you, it opened a lot of doors for me. First of all, I knew that I was interested in technical fields. Mm-hmm. I wasn't quite sure what. I was also quite interested in music, which persists to this day, and several other things. But when I wanted to put up a dipole, an 80-meter dipole in my backyard, which was 60 by 90 feet, I had to learn trigonometry so that I could figure out how to get it in there from which corner to what corner. And I was actually able to get almost 110 feet of antenna in that little lot. Mm-hmm. So that made it very easy for me when it was time to learn things like trigonometry in school. I already had mastered it on my own because I needed to do it. I found that the handbook, which I kept signing out of the library until the librarian said, why don't you just keep it, was very useful to me because it went over basic radio theory and electronic theory, which led me then to deciding that, well, I'm going to go and become an electrical engineer. So I went to Penn State, and I ended up with a dual major of engineering and also education. Mm-hmm. And I ended up teaching electrical engineering and electronics technology in several different parts of my career. So that was very interesting. I also did radio engineering as a result, and I've met some of the finest people in engineering who just happen to be hams.
Well, it's a small backyard, so to speak. Yeah. But so let's progress to present day. Now, you're very active in your local club. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your local club and what some of the makeup of the area is and what's going on in your local club.
Okay, while I was at Penn State, I participated in the Nittany Amateur Radio Club and the Penn State Amateur Radio Club. And as things were winding down there and I headed back to the hometown of Du Bois, Pennsylvania, I realized that there still was no club there, which made it difficult for me to get started, as we discussed. So what I did was founded a club. I just went through the call book because there were no computers then, and with the fine print in there, picked out everything with a nearby zip code, and ended up with a list of 154 people. So the form letter went out to people. We had an initial meeting. This was in 1975. And the club that we started was called the Quad County Amateur Radio Club. The concept that I had was it's a very rural area. And by rural, I don't mean farming. I mean forests and woods.
So what are the 4 counties?
The 4 counties are Clearfield, Jefferson, Elk, and Cameron. And by bringing hams from those 4 counties together, we were able to have a sizable number and what I called critical mass, to have enough members that we could do things. From the very beginning, the club had a public service orientation where we did things like Halloween patrols where we served as eyes and ears for the law enforcement in various communities. And we also did a lot of other fun activities that were ham radio activities. Group rides to Hamfest, the Warren Hamfest here in Ohio was one of the most popular then. Field day was always a big deal for us, so we did that. Mm-hmm. So it was a good all-around club. We became a special service club in 1984. And we also then started giving, at that time, the FCC turned amateur examinations over to the volunteer exam program. So we started becoming volunteer examiners and giving volunteer exams. And we'd have 30 or 40 people show up at a VE session back then. It was really a different world than it is today.
So if you fast forward just a little bit more in your amateur radio life, 2 years ago, you took on the job of affiliated club coordinator for Western Pennsylvania under the ARRL. Tell us what that entails.
Well, the affiliated club coordinator, each section should have one, and that is the person who is the go-between between clubs and the ARRL. They provide services to clubs, they encourage clubs in their activities, they give whatever support they can and arrange for support from various staff positions in the local section. And they encourage the clubs that are doing well to go even further and take the next step to become special service clubs. Now, I've had the opportunity to work with some really terrific people in the clubs, and some of the clubs have an issue here or there, but overall I have to say that there's good leadership and the clubs make amateur radio happen in the communities they serve because they're the focal point for all amateur radio activities. So now, that's a great thing.
In Western Pennsylvania, how many affiliated clubs?
There are currently 46 affiliated clubs in Western Pennsylvania.
46. And in the last year, how many of those have you visited?
In the last year, I visited 41 of them.
41.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good number. I'd say you're getting around, and that's a great thing and a real tribute to your dedication to the position. And I'd like to congratulate you. Starting on January 1st, you are the new section manager for the Western Pennsylvania section. So I'm the outgoing section manager. You're the incoming one, and so I'm sure that all of the ARRL members and the ARRL affiliated clubs are looking forward to you taking the reins and taking over. So do you have any thoughts about your new position as section manager?
Well, I have some mighty big shoes to fill because you've done an outstanding job as section manager, and I appreciate the opportunity to take the service that I've been providing to clubs to the next level. I've heard nothing but positive comments from people in clubs far and wide throughout the section. They were very supportive of me becoming section manager. And what I hope to do is continue the work that I've started as the affiliated club coordinator and work hand in hand with the clubs to serve radio amateurs in the communities that they serve throughout this half of the state.
Oh, that's great. Well, Joe, thanks very much for coming in and speaking with us today. We hope you've enjoyed this interview, and we look forward to seeing you on the bands. 73 from DX Engineering.